Welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin, and this is a custom video for Mike, we'll call him. He writes, I'm sincerely enjoying your videos and I appreciate the wealth of information you provide regarding the GMT series, especially the ones I'm looking at right now, which are the 16700 and the 16710. Now that's the GMT and the GMT Master 2. The difference being on the GMT Master 2, you can separate the 24-hour hand and the local hour hand. I have a relatively small wrist of 16.5 centimeters and I currently wear a 36 millimeter Explorer 114270. However, I'm struggling because I really need a GMT function for work. I work in cybersecurity and digital investigations where the time is always recorded and reported in GMT. And I probably should have gotten a watch with a GMT function from the beginning. I also should have gotten a watch that displays the date. I just really love the look and feel of the Explorer, so I bought it even though it doesn't really give me the utility I need on a day-to-day basis. Wow, lesson for anybody who hasn't bought their first Rolex watch yet, because if you get one that's thin on functions, you're going to be getting a Rolex number 2. But I think it makes a lot of sense to get one packed full of functions right from the get-go because the usability of it. He continues, I stepped into a watch shop and tried on a 16700 that seemed to actually fit quite well. So that's the earlier GMT, which is thinner. Now we'll talk about this, but it's essentially a millimeter thinner than the 16710, which is a really attractive proposition because I love thin watches. He does too. This seemed to fit him well. However, the salesperson also brought a GMT2 for me to try, and it seemed considerably thicker than the 16700. I didn't catch the number it was, but I have to assume it was a fat lady because it was so thick. Come to think of it, I've never actually investigated the thickness of these watches next to one another. They've all been thin enough that I don't really think about it. So yeah, I would go back to that shop and do that. He has a list of needs and a list of wants when it comes to this future Rolex watch. All right, so here are the needs. Necessary is a GMT time zone capability watch. And so I'm glad he mentioned that because I would be inclined to recommend a 16570 40 millimeter Explorer 2. That's a very thin, very comfortable watch, very well priced watch. Talk about bang for buck and loaded with functions, but it's got that fixed metal bezel, so you can't change the GMT time on the fly. So I think that one's out. He says that he needs a movement that can handle being relatively active for activities such as cycling, scooter riding, baseball, bumps, and knocks. And I think a neo-vintage, or especially a modern Rolex, which they test really vigorously, would be fine for these types of activities. But keep in mind that bumps and shocks and drops, that's the Achilles heel of a mechanical watch, Rolex included. And we often look at watches like the Submariner and say, you know, it's tough, it's like a tank. But the fact is, it's more like, surprise, surprise, a submarine. In fact, all Oyster Perpetuals are. Some go deeper, some don't go as deep, but they're like a submarine. They do great in water, but like a submarine, they're probably relatively fragile, and a knock and a drop can wreak havoc. So be careful. You might, for those kind of activities, get a Casio, but I would venture to say you'd probably be all right. But you know, if you're not, you might experience a time change in how accurate your watch is, and it could throw it off COSC standards. So be careful there. He says it needs to handle a little water. I think I just addressed that. He says, I will not be swimming or anything, but I do spend time outside in the rain, wash my hands with the watch on. I also occasionally forget that I'm still wearing my watch and step into the shower. All right, that's not going to be a problem at all as long as your seals are all right. And so if you don't know the service history of a new watch, well, be careful. I probably wouldn't take it in water, but if it's been serviced and you feel confident the seals are all right, then I wouldn't worry about that at all. He says he wants something with a pretty conservative, thin profile. So I think you're right. You've identified the thinnest of the Rolex GMTs, the 16700. Now there's going to be a trade-off there, and we'll talk about what it is. Now, these are a list of wants. He wants the quick set date. All right, that's interesting. Well, that's a 16700 right there because it's got the quick set date. Now, the 16710 doesn't, and that means you have to jump the hour hand and make it go around and around and around to change the date. Not a big deal, and I really wouldn't be buying a watch for the quick set date, but if you really do want the quick set date, then a GMT Master 2 is not for you. It's got to have Pepsi bezel. He says he wants a model with a locking clasp, like on his 114270, so it doesn't, as he puts it, accidentally come off. Nightmare scenario. But that's not going to be a problem because later on he talks about Luminova and wanting a watch that he can read in the dark. And so any of those later, more modern 16700s or 16710s with either the Luminova or Super Luminova are going to have clasps with a flip lock. The older ones, like the 90s pieces, have clasps without the flip lock, so that's not going to be a problem. All right, talking about Luminova, he says, visibility in the dark is pretty important to me, but this makes me nervous because I don't really have the expertise to scrutinize 16700s with a Luminova service dial to discern if the service was properly done. Well, that's one thing, whether the service was properly done. It's another whether you actually want a service dial on your 16700 just to get that lume, and I would say I would not. When it comes to the originality of a watch, the dial is one of the most important things. In fact, a lot of people say that the dial is the most important thing. I think that's debatable. I think the case is pretty important as well, but the point is, you're not going to want to purposely buy a service dial. Now, Rolex could put it in and the integrity of the watch would be fine, but aesthetically speaking, from a purity standpoint, it's just not something that is desirable. But you can have the best of both worlds when it comes to the 16700 if you get the right example, and that example would be an A serial. Those are the last of the 16700s. After that, the line was discontinued, and so those are from 1999 or the year 2000. That line ended in 2000, and from 2000 onward, Rolex only made the 16710 GMT Master 2. Now, those A serials, those last of the last A serials, some of them had the Swiss only dial, and so that would mean Luminova on the hands, Luminova on the dial. You'd be able to read the time in the dark. It would make servicing it a lot easier because you wouldn't have to worry about them changing out, say, tritium hands. If they do have to change out the hands during a service, which they probably won't because usually they have to do that when the tritium in tritium hands crack. But if they happen to need to, for some reason, the hands get scratched up or something, then they'll put on hands with Super Luminova. And is there a difference between Luminova and Super Luminova? I've heard that there's no difference, but if you've heard otherwise or you have insight into that, let us know in the comments section, please. But I tell you, it's a heck of a lot better than getting Luminova hands or Super Luminova hands on a tritium dial. Plus, you have the collectability aspect of the Swiss only 16700. They only made those Swiss only dials for a couple years at most. And so there's some potential collectability there. So that's what you want. You want a 16700, last of the last A serial, and you can have it all. Well, not all, because 16700 ownership does come with a price in terms of aesthetics, which we'll talk about, but also functionality, which I already mentioned, the fact that you can't separate the 24-hour hand and the local hour hand, which is a great feature of those GMT Master 2s. All right, but he continues. He says, I suppose this decision is also somewhat contingent on the question above regarding the thickness and size of the watch, because I really do lean in the direction of the thinner if there is any meaningful difference. And that's interesting because whether there's meaningful difference really is a subjective question. All the more reason to try them on side by side and make sure you know what you're trying on. And, the 16700 is a perfect fit. And just see if the 1610 is as well. And if it's not, that's your decision right there. He asks, is there any meaningful difference in the reliability or durability between the movements on the 16700 and the 16710? That is a great question, but it's above my pay grade. Still, I will hazard to answer it for you there. Viewer, if you have any insights on the reliability and durability of the movements of these two pieces, drop them in the comment section for Mike, please. But it's best to think of these movements, in my opinion, as equal in terms of durability and reliability, and that's because of the fact that these two watches ran side by side and gave the customer an option. And the 16700 was just the bare bones, cheaper, more basic and affordable option at the time, whereas the 16710 was the cutting edge, latest and greatest, more expensive for those who wanted a little bit more functionality. He ends it with this: at the moment, I'm leaning towards the idea of finding a 16700 with a luminous service dial. Again, unnecessary. You can go original. But I have to admit, I'm unclear on a lot of the details and intimidated by the market. And that's why you're here, and that's why we're here to help. And thank you for this custom video request. And I think you're all set. I think you know that you can get what you want. But the biggest question in my mind would be whether to go for a 16700 or a 16710. And we talked about functionality, but there's also an aesthetic component, because I know that you want a Pepsi, but in the future, it's always fun to get other inserts. And if you want to get that Coke insert, it's not going to be something you can get, at least through RSC, if you have a 16700. So in the future, if you do want those Coke colors, and because you're a purist, you want it sanctioned by Rolex, then the 16710 is going to be the only option that allows you to get those Coke colors. And you know, that might seem like not that big of a deal, but I gotta say the Coke insert is a wonderful insert. So for me, the all black is not enough. The Pepsi is too much, but the Coke is just right. Kind of like that story, The Three Bears, which was actually based on these three bezel inserts. That's right, that wonderful story we all grew up with and that we all love, and which was, as we know, written by Hans Wilsdorf himself in between inventing the concept of time and the mustache. Come for the practical watch knowledge, stay for the disturbing alternative facts and equally disturbing indoctrination. Thank you, Mike, for your custom video request. Viewer, let Mike know what you would do. Would you go for the 16700? Would that thinness be worth it? Or would you want the functionality and Coke aesthetics possible with the 16710? Let us know. Take care. Thanks for watching. See you next time.